Welcome back to the Prime Focus Goalkeeping channel. It's your host, Brandon Miller here. Today, we're going to talk about rebounds, and more specifically, how to control rebounds. A lot of goalkeepers have questions about how do we deal with certain balls that are difficult and tight, where do we put rebounds? So we're going to talk about a lot of that today. So first off, we're going to talk about the most important thing, and it's about learning how to control the ball. All right, so we're going to talk about a few different scenarios here in order for us to learn how we can control the ball when we get into the net. Balls start flying faster, they start flying at different angles, we have to start diving. The biggest thing is control. All right, so we're gonna start out, we're gonna look at a few volleys, right? So when we're in the beginning of training, we're just taking simple volleys. A lot of times balls come in, everything is nice and simple. We're catching, balls coming in. But how do we start to figure out how to control those balls as they start to come in at a little bit more pace, and we're simulating balls that from 25, 30 yards out are coming in very hard for us to control. The most simple way to learn how to control it is right here where we're working on volleys. So balls coming in, instead of catching it, how do we control it down and recover from that? That's what we have to learn on a continuous basis, is how do we control a ball down, right? So the big thing is taking the pace off the ball, right? Understanding that that ball's coming in straight at me and I'm used to holding it, so I put my hands up in that shape, but now it's coming in with too much pace for me to be able to hold it here. So I have to cushion that ball and control it down in order to then recover and take it cleanly, right? So ball's coming in, they're coming in at a good pace. How do we control that ball down? Using our fingertips, using our hands to soften the blow of the ball and control it down. Let's do a couple more here. Ball comes in and we can control it down. Now, obviously, if you can hold, but this is simulating balls that are starting to come at a higher pace. So ball comes in, we're not ready to hold it. How do we push it down, right? So one of the keys for that is getting on top of the ball, as opposed to a lot of goalkeepers tend to get underneath the ball, right? And so it's really hard to cushion a ball down when my fingers and my palms are pushing it up, right? So getting a little bit more on top of the ball. So especially when I don't catch this ball, it's naturally going down, as opposed to me being here and now I'm trying to push it up, and then I've got to try and react to where the ball goes from there. So focusing on controlling the ball, focusing on taking the pace off the ball, pushing it down, and then being able to recover from that. Now, let's put the ball down on the ground. We're gonna look at how we do a similar type thing with low balls. We talked about it in a video before when we talked about how to take low balls, whether it's here, whether it's our knee down, whether it's a front smother, right? The biggest thing is catching and controlling the ball. Well, we wanna talk about controlling the ball at this point, because the balls that we're talking about today are balls that we're not very confident in holding, and they're difficult balls, so we have to learn how to control where they go. All right, so the easiest thing is to start balls coming in, simple. We're working on catching first. Obviously, we're holding, we're catching and holding. Simple control there, control of the ball. My hands are behind the ball, I'm in a good shape and I can hold it. Now, as we pick up the pace on those balls, how do we kill the momentum of that ball and put it down? How do we still have our hands in a good place, but then put it down and recover? So these are balls that we're not sure we can hold, but we have to get our body behind it and our hands behind it in order to control where it goes, right? These are balls hit right at us. We're not going to let it just bounce off our hands and pop off anywhere. We want to be able to high-paced ball, let it come in, but control it in front of us and recover. All right, so let's do a couple more. Put some good pace on that ball. Ball's coming in, and we're good to recover for the second one. So it's taking the pace off the ball, just like before, having a control of where this ball goes, right? Understanding that I'm not gonna be able to hold this one, but I'm going to control where it goes. Take the pace off of it, kill it, and then we control it. So that's good for there. We're looking at balls that are driven in towards our face at this height. How do we control those balls down and recover? Looking at low balls, how do we take the pace off of those balls, kill it in front of us, and then recover from that, right? They're not quite the rebounds that you're thinking about, but it's how we start to learn how to control the ball that's gonna help us when we get into goal, pushing rebounds into areas that we're safe and we feel comfortable. So now, let's move into the goal. So now we're in the goal. We're gonna take a little look at controlling the ball, what that shape looks like when we're diving. Right, so we talked about balls that are hit straight at us. We talked about some low balls. Now we wanna look at what that shape looks like when we're diving. So we're gonna see a few balls here. We're gonna work on, when we dive, pushing that ball out wide, as opposed to just having our hands here and the ball popping off our hands, whether it be off our fingertips there or off our hands right here and the ball coming back in here. We want to focus on controlling it and actually pushing it. All right, so we'll see a few from Pablo. Ball's going to come in and we're here and we're pushing out wide. All right, so thinking about hand shape, how strong our hands are, and we're controlling that ball out wide. Now, obviously some of these we can hold, but as that ball gets a little bit faster and comes from further out, we need that technique and the consideration, the control to push it out wide. So thinking about from there, like we're looking at our hand shape, we're thinking about what part of our hand we're pushing that ball with. Obviously our palm is a little bit stronger than our fingertips typically. So how do we get our palm in that ball and push it out wide a good bit as opposed to simply letting it just hit our fingertips? And so now we've seen the balls on the ground. Now we're gonna see a typical situation that goalkeepers see a lot of times from a dipped in volley, a skipped in ball, where that ball bounces right in front. We don't feel comfortable enough to hold it. How do we push that ball out, right? We can do it two-handed, we can do it one-handed. Two-handed typically tends to be a bit safer, but sometimes we only have the ability to go with one. So we're gonna go down in that same position. All right, we're gonna have some balls tossed in. They're gonna toss in and bounce right in front of us. How do we control that ball? Again, extending our hands out, controlling, and now it's timing it and pushing it out, but using that same part of our hand in order to get the ball out. So ball comes in, ball's bouncing. How do we push it out wide, right? Timing on this one is key in order to control it, but making the decision to control it and push it out wide as opposed to just ball bounces and it's in front of us. Now we're on the ground and we've got to get up and recover from that. And a lot of times in games that can be tough. So focusing on, if I'm not sure about it, the ball's bouncing in, I'm gonna push that ball out wide. Let's see one more. Ball's in and we can push out wide. So now that we're in the goal, we're gonna start talking about pushing rebounds out into safe areas, right? So we're gonna look a little bit more at diving, and then we're gonna look at some difficult balls in tight and how we deal with those. All right, so Pablo's gonna be our example goalkeeper here. This is what I started to work on in college and learn this drill in college. That was really effective for learning how to push rebounds into certain places, okay? So we're gonna start off with Pablo on his knees. From here, we're gonna start to we're gonna start basic, put some balls down to his side, and then we're gonna start to stretch them a little bit. Now we've got our mannequin here that's gonna act as a striker, as a defender, as someone in the box where we want to avoid putting the ball in their area. All right, so we've got the striker there about 6-7 yards out. So we'll start out simple, down to the side, and then we're gonna start to stretch a little bit more and think about Pablo's hand shape. The biggest thing here for goalkeepers, a lot of times when we're diving down to make saves, our hands are simply here to block, but we're not looking to control, right? So the ball, our hands go out, and then the ball just flops off of our hands because we're not thinking about guiding the ball anywhere. We're not thinking about pushing it anywhere. We're simply just trying to make the save. And so it's a very short time frame that we have to think about a lot of this stuff. It happens in seconds, in milliseconds, right? But it's thinking about starting to build the good habits of what my hand shape looks like when I want to put the ball out wide or when I want to push the ball out towards the sideline. Thinking about that. So let's build into it. So we'll start out here, Pablo on his knees, a simple step and a dive down to his side to get him used to getting down, catching the ball, holding the ball. We'll get a couple there. Good, and as we start to work through, we're gonna start to stretch him a little bit more, and he's still able to hold there. So now we're gonna start to push it. We're pushing down towards the bottom corner. So now as we start to stretch him a little bit more, with our striker right here, 6 yards out down the middle, where are the safe areas to play the ball? Obviously, we don't wanna leave it right in front, but thinking about and being aware what else is in the 18, do we wanna tip that ball around the post out for a corner? Can we push it out wide, right? Sometimes we don't have a lot of time and a lot of decision making in that process, so being comfortable with the technique of continuing to push it, getting your fingertips on it, getting the hand on it, and pushing it out wide, this is the drill that's gonna help you do that. So here we are as we start to pick up a little bit of pace on it. What does it look like as Pablo stretched a little bit more? Obviously, Pablo can still hold these balls. Good. So pushing out, being able to get out wide and get your fingertips on that. Great touch. There we go. So looking at what it looks like to push the ball through with your fingertips past the post. Great touch. All right, so as we start to pick up the pace on these balls, Right, how do we decide, are we going to put it out wide? Are we going to tip around the post? Are we going to hold? Right, the biggest thing is if we're going to push it out wide, we've got to control it. We've got to actually get the ball out wide as opposed to leaving it in front. So we're going to see a few now. We're going to serve it a little bit harder for Pablo, and we're going to see what his decision making looks like. We're going to look at his hand shape and how he guides the ball out wide. We've seen how he tips around the post. How does he guide the ball out wide? Maybe we're not giving away a corner, but we're putting it in an area that's not as dangerous. All right, instead of leaving it right in front for our mannequin, our striker that's right there. All right, so we're going to serve a few balls in now. We're going to put them on a little bit more pace and starting there, right? So looking at Pablo got two strong hands to it, but Pablo guided it straight into the mannequin, right? So it's a great push for him. Difficult ball, probably not able to hold it, and he's made the decision to push, but he's put it in an area that's left it right in front for the striker. So now we think about, how do we turn our hands? How do we maybe catch that ball a little bit later and guide it out here as opposed to guiding it forward? So let's put a few more balls in, a little bit more pace. Again, thinking about, now, there's certain times, and we have to understand it, there's certain times we're going to put rebounds, maybe top of the 18, maybe the corner of the 18 in that area. A lot of it depends on the pace of the ball, right? So a ball like that, where Pablo's put a good amount of pace and our rebound has ended up outside the 18, it's a little bit, that's something we can recover from a little bit more rather than simply leaving the ball right in our 6. Now, we still want to work on the angle. Can we get the ball out wide? And that's something that we want to work on in terms of our shape. Like, we're taking that step and we're diving diagonally trying to attack the ball, but we're also trying to send the ball to the side. So thinking about adjusting our step, adjusting our shoulder positioning, and adjusting the angle that we're meeting the ball on so we can push it out wide. So let's put a few more balls in. Good push, 2 hands, ball goes wide. Good touch, let's go 2 more here. Think about the hand shape, how do we push it wide? There we go, fingertips pushing that ball wide, nice strong hands. Good, that's a good one to end on. So now we're gonna look at some balls that aren't on the ground. Right? Balls that may be a little bit mid-height, not so much stretching. We know when we're stretching, we're going fingertips, we're trying to tip around the post, where we're dealing with balls that may be at a catchable height, but are at a pace that we're just not comfortable holding, right? So how do we now push that ball out wide, push that ball up high, and we're dealing with those difficult balls and not just dropping them down in front. A lot of times goalkeepers get caught, ball gets hit right here, they're not comfortable holding it, but they aren't making a decision, and so it just hits their hands and we're giving up rebounds 2-3 yards away, as opposed to being really decisive and deciding to push that ball out and recover from that. And I always tell my goalkeepers, as a goalkeeper coach, if you make a decision to put a rebound out wide, put it out into the stands, put it out for a corner kick, right? We'll have a discussion about it afterwards, but if you are indecisive and you give up a rebound and then we get a goal scored on us, right now we have to have a conversation of why we're not making the decision to put that ball out and recover, right? It's about the decision making as a goalkeeper. So let's start out here. We're gonna send a few balls in. They're gonna be at a pace that Pablo may not be comfortable with holding. Where do we put the ball? How do we get the ball out of there? Thinking about our hand shape. It's not to catch anymore. It's more so to guide it, right? So we talked about control before. How do we control this ball out wide? What's the height look like? Can we push it up and out, or is it going to be simply out? Right, let's make those decisions now. So Pablo's set and ready. We're gonna put some balls in at pace and see what his decision looked like. Looking at his hand shape there, right? He's made a very smart decision to guide that ball out wide. He's taken the butt of his hand and he's pushing that ball out wide. He's made the decision. I'm not holding this. This ball's in at pace, but I'm gonna guide it into a safer area so now Pablo can get up and recover and get across the goal. Let's look at a few more. Good. So you can hear the differences, right? The different parts of his hand. When he gets that firm part of the palm of his hand and pushes that ball out, it's a much deeper sound than the ball simply just hitting his hands. So sometimes, again, we talked about that ball's gonna go down the middle on a rebound. It's better to go for it to go down the middle at pace than for it to be simply dropped in to the middle. So thinking about actively pushing the ball away as opposed to just letting it hit your hands. Let's go one more here. Good. So these balls are in tight. These balls aren't aren't stretches for Pablo. He's not having to step and push, but he's having to make a decision on a ball that's right here, a ball that's right here, a ball that's in tight. Sometimes it's in here. The ball comes in here. What do? Are we just going to let it hit our hands and drop down, or are we going to guide it out to where it needs to go and then we can get up and recover? Right? Not everything's going to be clean as a goalkeeper, but decision making is such a massive part of the game and deciding where those rebounds are going to go and how we're going to deal with them and be able to recover. So that's mainly it for rebounds. There's plenty more we can talk about, but leave some questions in the comments and we'll be sure to respond to those and dive in deeper next time. So for now, remember, prime focus goalkeeping, stay focused. We'll see you soon.